So here is my brief analysis regarding the object known as the ancient handbag. Without delving too deeply into details, whether it is a handbag like today's women's purse or something more akin to a modern bucket, which might look similar, it is certain that all these ideas can be generalized to an object used for carrying something, meaning an item meant for transport. My assumption here is that the contents are the most important aspect, but they cannot be depicted in the sculpture in any way other than being hidden within an object designed for carrying other things. We also know that the contents do not protrude from the object. Based on this, I assume that the contents are a liquid and that the object itself is a type of vessel. Why couldn't it just be sand or a magical cosmic dust? Because all such ideas assume solid substances, which would likely be displayed directly in the sculpture rather than concealed within a vessel. Someone very wise once suggested to me that perhaps the vessel contains a cat. However, a cat is a solid object, and the ancients depicted it differently. The ancients, knowing that people 1,000 years later would be viewing the sculpture, were aware that the message, even a visual one, needed to be as readable, accurate, and based on truths valid both then and 1,000 years later, such as the fact that water is wet or stone is hard. The only reason for depicting the contents in this way is that it was probably the only possible way to do so. Thus, the assumption that the contents are a liquid seems the most probable. At this point, I think it is best to exclude the most common liquid on Earth, water. Water was depicted differently. Regarding the size of the vessel, this is, of course, a matter of measurement systems, as the ancients undoubtedly used a different one than we do today. Just as it is difficult to assume that in 10 or 15,000 years, schools will be teaching the same kind of mathematics. This makes it challenging to estimate the size of the figure holding the vessel. However, translating this into today's terms, one can assume that the vessel is slightly larger than an adult man's hand. I assume, therefore, that it has a total capacity of about 1 liter. The contents certainly do not occupy a full liter. I think it is reasonable to analyze a volume of 0.5 to 0.7 liters of the substance. Regarding the weight of the vessel, this is represented by the position of the figure holding it and the orientation of the object in the sculpture. The sculpture appears to be divided into 2 halves. The upper half is characterized by light, rounded shapes, in some way directed upwards, or inert, or even swirling. The lower half suggests rather heavy, solid shapes, standing stably or aimed downward, in a state of rest or full gravity. The figure holding the vessel does not hold it above their head. In practically every sculpture of this type, the vessel is held quite low or simply supported from below. The position of the figure clearly indicates a rather heavy vessel. In such a position, for obvious reasons, one carries heavy materials, and this, too, is an unchanging principle. Translating this into today's conditions, I estimate the total weight of the vessel at about 10 kilograms. This certainly gives us a new perspective on an important parameter, density. Assuming the vessel itself weighs 1 to 2 kilograms and considering the possible amount of liquid inside, we quickly calculate the following results. 8.9 kilograms divided by 0.7 liters equals 12.71 grams per cubic centimeter. 9 kilograms divided by 0.5 liters equals 18 grams per cubic centimeter. Regardless of whether the vessel is made of stone and weighs about 2 kilograms or is a lightweight bucket weighing 1 kilogram, the average result gives us a value close to 14 g/cm cubed. That is about 14 times denser than water. This vessel was depicted in a similar manner in various parts of the world. This strongly suggests that it was already recognized across the globe in ancient times. Thus, it is certainly not a complex chemical compound produced locally by a single civilization. If it were, it would not have been recognizable or understandable even to people living just a few generations later. I assume, therefore, that it refers to a simple substance, most likely naturally available. Is there anything magical, mystical, or mysterious about this? Both yes and no, because what could be magical about a very heavy liquid? The ancients perceived gravity, inertia, and gravitational forces somewhat differently. They clearly understood where to look for them. They definitely grasped the difference between the weight of something at rest and in a state of inertia, which in Earth's conditions can be achieved, for example, through spinning. Moreover, the liquid is being carried, according to the sculpture, with great care and reverence, which touches upon mysticism. After all, it is being held by important figures. In conclusion, in my opinion, the object is a vessel containing a liquid of immense density. At the same time, it is a simple substance, naturally available, recognizable, and understandable, like water, but possessing unique properties. Many sources mention the presence of such a substance in underground chambers of pyramids and ancient Chinese halls, in vast quantities. I believe that the significant substance in question is mercury. To verify this result, one could ask the following question. If mercury was so valuable in those times that it was stored in pyramids, is there any other possible way to visually represent this material than as a small, very heavy vessel? And this object meets all the criteria of this brief analysis. Moreover, when subjected to an electromagnetic field, it shows high activity and the ability to be easily set into rotational motion, which certainly must have been noticed by ancient rulers.